over time. All right, well, it's good to talk to all of you. And I think Matt gave a wonderful introduction for why we need charter change. I'm going to speak, I want to run through this relatively quickly. The reason being that I'd really like to hear from you about what you would like to see. I mean, one of the most important reasons that I want to talk to organizations is so that I can bring the knowledge of the neighbors back to the city charter. So let me just begin really briefly with the background of the charter. We are the last remaining major city in the US with a commission form of government. I really want to stress it the way I've just said it. When they run previously, for example, back in 2007, they said, we are the only major city, which inspired a lot of Portlanders to kind of dance around and say, that's because we're weird and we're special. So I don't want to say we are the only, which we are, but I want to say we are the last. We are the holdout on this form of government. It was developed in 1913, when Portland had around 200,000 people. The idea of this commission form of government was that at that time, government was seen as being very inefficient and quite corrupt. And so it was a system designed to have a mayor surrounded by experienced professionals. For example, someone with a background in policing, someone with a background in fire. That's actually why those positions are nonpartisan. Gotcha. Please, guys, don't yell. Thanks. It won't work. It's really hard to think when they're shouting out there. Anyway, the idea was that that people would elect people to run the bureaus, and that's why they run the bureaus. It started falling apart almost immediately because people vote for politicians. And so now we have a city that's well over 650,000 with a system in which the commissioners, instead of representing districts or instead of representing the voters, are representing bureaus. That system now exists in less than 1% of US cities, and of those, most are under 100,000. It does not translate well, as I will explain in a minute, to a large city with the kind of problems that we're facing today. First, what are some of these issues? We on the Charter Commission, so there are 20 of us. Vadim is here, he's one of them, and he can correct me for all the mistakes that I make as we go through. We spent a lot of time talking to the heads of various bureaus, and the consistent message that we got from them was that it didn't allow for any uniform vision. You've seen what it is today. You have to ask another organization. They don't have the budget. Another organization has the budget. If, for example, the Office of Emergency Services needs some kind of enhancement to its 911 system, it has to ask the other bureaus to give them money. They have different HR systems. There is no integration across the bureaus. And because they are being represented by different people, there in fact is competition for funding between various bureaus that should be working together. By having no uniform vision, we are unable to address issues like the one that you were talking about today with the art in the pearl. It will always belong to someone else. I know many of you here know me well enough to know that I'm continually complaining about trash removal, and that's because I live very near this overpass at the end of Park Avenue that goes over I-405 near PSU. And when we would do cleanups of the homeless, but when I would try to get someone to pick up the trash, I would be told, no, that's actually ODOT. No, the ODOT would say that's actually PBOT. No, PBOT would say that's actually Parks, and would just go around and around and around. The person who finally helped me, by the way, was I'm having a brain freeze right now. It was Judy. It was Judy who came in and solved the whole problem for me. So it leads to bureaucratic siloization, infighting, and inefficiency. We also get people who are heading bureaus who lack expertise. Now, it takes a long time to become an expert, but even just to have a handle on your department, it takes about a year. And under the current system, the leaders of the departments can be changed every 2 years. So you have someone who spends 1 year getting up to speed to do something for 1 year. So that is another serious problem. And I think for me, the most serious, and this relates back to my garbage issue, is that people don't know where to go. They don't know who to call. They don't know who represents them. They don't know if they have a local problem, because all of the commissioners now are elected citywide. They can't really even go to their city councilor or commissioner because there's no one who specifically represents them. I may live in East Portland and have a real concern about a certain intersection where it's very dangerous and people are being hit by cars. If I were represented by someone in East Portland, I think they would take that very seriously. But on a citywide basis, when we're looking at all the issues, that one starts becoming little and not very important to the city council. So those are all of the issues. When we can't think long-term, we can't address climate change. How can you address climate change when the heads of your bureaus change every 2 years? How can you have any kind of integrated policies moving forward? We've seen how well it allows us to deal with homelessness, to deal with emergency services, to deal with policing, all of the things that you have been raising. So Portland has put into process this charter commission. As I said, there are 20 of us, and I'm going to skip to what we're doing right now. And that is that the decision was made, because these are huge issues, to divide what we're doing into 2 phases. You can read more about this. The website for the Charter Commission, just go to Google Portland Charter Commission. It's really very good. And you can read about all of these steps there. But to just go through it very quickly, now until January, we've divided our commission into 2 committees. We insist on calling them subcommittees. I am an English nut, so it makes me crazy because you can't have a subcommittee when there's no committee. Nevertheless, they call themselves subcommittees. And those are on form of government and city council elections. And at this point, I'm going to tip my hat to Hank Shotland, who is with Downtown, who has done some wonderful research on this. And some of the work that I'm doing will be drawn from what he has told me about what he has told me. Of the 2 committees, of those 2 issues, form of government and city council election, we're looking to get both of them on the November 22nd ballot. I'm sorry, November 2022 ballot. And we expect to have first drafts ready this January or February. So right now we're doing intensive research and intensive talking to groups like you. The kind of issues that we're looking at on form of government are what roles the mayor and city council should be playing. Should we have a city manager? I'm not even going to ask, should we have a strong mayor? I've learned well enough from past experience and from Portland that those 2 words should never be combined in a sentence. And that's the last time you're ever going to hear me combine those 2 words into a sentence. But should we be looking for a city manager? How should that person be selected? And how should the various bureaus be managed? The second part of the phase 1 is city council elections. On that, we're looking at how many city councilors should there be? Who should they represent? Should they be district representation? Should they be citywide? Should it be some form of hybrid? And finally, the form of voting and elections. All of those we hope to get onto the November 22nd ballot. Then we'll start phase 2. In phase 2 begins in January. The content is still not completely settled yet, but it will likely include service alignment and bureau coordination, the big bugaboo that we've been talking about all throughout this meeting. Accountability and transparency, democracy growth, And then I'd like to hear from you when it comes time for you to speak, some things that you would like to have included. One of the issues that I am really pressing for is to look at the possibility of a Bureau of Homelessness. And another that was raised by one of the bureaus that we spoke with was a community development department. The third thing that we're doing besides phase 1 and phase 2 is community engagement. I'm going to talk in a minute a little bit why it failed in 2007, but I just want to emphasize your voice matters. We really pay attention to what people say in open meetings and to the testimony that is written in. I will tell both are valid. I'm having some kind of feedback, excuse me. Both are valid ways to communicate with us, but I will tell you that when you can sign up to speak at one of the meetings, your voice is better. Maybe Marcia could mute, would help.
Oh, okay.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Your voice will be heard. The next date for giving testimony is on September 23rd. I think you have 3 minutes. It's not a lot of time, but you can sign up and there's a full list of all the dates on the website. And we will also be giving public hearings on draft language after we produce it from March till May. So now I'm going to quickly leap into problems that we're facing in this effort. The first is that there have been 7 attempts to change the form of government. And there have been 7 failures in the attempts to change the government. Since in the last 2 times, which were in 2002 and 2007, it failed by a margin of over 3-1. That was pretty bad. The opponents included everyone from the League of Women Voters to unions, to Bud Clark, to Charlie Hales, to Amanda Fritz, to half the city council and the former auditors. Why did it fail so badly? And this is the work that I've gotten from Hank. And again, I want to thank him for that. The first is that everyone hated the term strong mayor. They were worried about corruption. They were worried it was going to give him too much power or her too much power. So that's something that I'm very aware of. But I looked at great length at the kind of things that people wrote back in 2007 and why they were opposing it. I think the biggest one was this line that we're never going to hear again. And that was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That Portland is a model US city. It's considered the most livable city in America. It's internationally recognized. These are all quotes for addressing the issues that confound all urban places, such as homelessness. No one's saying that anymore. And so that first big issue, I think we don't need to worry about it, but we do need to spread the message, and you need to spread the message of how very broke this system is. Third, they said there were people who reported, many, our current form of government is accountable, responsive, and innovative. There's no evidence our form of government is holding us back. Again, I think that one has probably gone the way of the dodo. Other things that we should remain aware of. The charter reform was seen as being highly pro-business, not pro-public. People felt that the reform bill was rushed and there was no time to really study the issues. That's why we are making such an effort to reach out to people from the very beginning, to have this very long process where we put in the first drafts in January, attempting to have them ready by June, because we want to hear how people respond to the drafts. And that it addressed only ending the commission form of government without addressing how the city council would change. And as you have heard, we're addressing both of those now, so that it's not just about whether you bring in a city manager, but how people will be represented better. And I would add finally that the arguments for changing the form of government were very intellectual arguments, that it would make government more efficient, that it would make us run smoother, that it would be good for business. The arguments against them were very emotional. that the current government is responsive to our citizens. So I think it's important for us to bear that in mind, that if you want to win hearts and minds, you've got to talk about the impact of our current form of government on the public. So what do I see as the differences from from then and what we are facing now? I've described some of them, but I will tell you that a couple that I think are really important. Back in 2007, the Charter Commission made some propositions that were then sent to the City Council, which was really on the fence about whole charter change. Went back and forth. It was always at 3-2, one way or the other. In this case, if 15 of the 20 of us can agree on the language, it goes straight to the voters. It bypasses the City Council. If 12 to 14 agree, it will go to the City Council to be tweaked. We are putting considerable work, as I've said, into meetings. We've met with all the bureaus. We're planning to meet with the same unions that opposed us in the past and general community engagement. We are spending time studying and rectifying the reasons for past failures. And we are conducting open meetings and a high level of community engagement. We have open meetings every month. All of our meetings are being videotaped so that you can see them. And I really do urge you to testify. Your voice will be heard. So what do I think the current challenges are right now? Still, I don't think anyone will argue with me when I say we still have a high level of political and social polarization. That will be a problem. So I don't think that this will be a walk in the park by any means. We have to make this a full court press. And finally, we need to come up as a commission, we need to come up with a structure that will be something that Portlanders across the board can accept. And so my own personal background is that I'm a negotiator, which means that I never expect to get everything I ask for. And I don't think you should either. But what we have to start doing is prioritizing what are the essentials and just focus on those. So that's a little bit on the charter. I am very happy to answer questions or to just listen to what you have to say.
I think we will go in order of hands raised. I see Ken Thrasher's hand up. Go ahead, Ken.
Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Melanie, for your comments. I want to go back. I do support changes in the charter. I want to start with that right out of the box. But you started your whole discussion about broken silos. Right now, we have three major silos: Portland, the county, and Metro. Each of them have different functions and take on different responsibilities in the silos. And inside those silos, there are departments that function separately and in silos. So as you go through your work, have you had any discussions about how you're going to create a model, not just from the commission form of government, but also making these silos effectively work together, which may include merging the city and the county so we can eliminate silos?
That's a nice idea, but it's beyond our remit. We are looking at amending the Portland City Charter. And, you know, that is a big issue. I know that, interestingly enough, Multnomah County is doing its own charter review right now. But I think we have to bite off what we can chew right now. And what we're looking at is fixing the Portland City Charter. And that's all I can speak to.
So you're thinking it's a two-step possibility?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have a question, Melanie. I'm going to call upon myself. So that, following on that thought, so each of the charters for the county and the city would need to be changed, and then there would be some collaboration between them to do that, or how would that occur?
Again, quite honestly, I don't know. I think what we have to do is start by getting the city fixed. And then the next step will be how we get those different organizations together. It's not going to be done simultaneously.
Okay, I see a hand raised by Jerry Briggs. Jerry?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me, guys. I'm kind of new to this. This is only my second time being on here. So I'm trying to get a lay of the land. But Melanie, as you think about how you're going to sell this to the voter, I think the thing that's on my mind and on a lot of our minds is how do we clean up the streets? How do we clean up the garbage in the encampments? So how do you tie this in with that message? How, if we change our charter, if we make amendments to our charter, how does that then help us to clean up our streets?
It's a good question, Jerry. Now, I need to tell you right now that the commission has not determined yet what form that they're going to propose. But let us imagine that they propose a city manager. At that point, the commissioners would no longer be the heads of bureaus. So you wouldn't have this infighting of one bureau being under one city councilor and another bureau under another. They could begin under a city manager working together. Again, I can't say that that's what would be proposed, but if it were, that would be number one. The kinds of things, I want to just read to you very briefly, the kinds of things that some of the heads of the bureaus that we spoke to said. There's no one to enforce collaboration or to incentivize collaboration, even in emergency. It's cumbersome that every bureau ends up doing its own functions. We over here, they don't understand our business. We have no mentors, no teamwork. It requires cooperation across functions, but people are competing with one another rather than working together. And so that's what we're very aware of. If by changing the commission form of government, you have professional heads of bureaus rather than political heads of bureaus, those politicians would have the opportunity to represent their districts, not to represent a bureau. And the bureaus could be under say a city manager who would then be able to bring them together, adjust the way that they are managed, make them at minimum more cooperative, at minimum longer term in their thinking. But if I say anything that you think is out of line, just please speak up.
No, I think that helps. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Glenn Traeger, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. You know, many years ago, I took a class in city planning, and we studied different forms of city government. And one of the results of the studies that we did is we found out it wasn't the form of government that made a difference. It was the people that were in the office that made the most difference. So my question is, you know, Portland's got a lot of problems right now, and certainly we can all name them. But how much of that problems is the organization versus the people that we have in our elected office?
You know, I guess I'm going to push back on you a little bit there, Glenn. I think that it is true. People are always important, but I'm an educator. And I think, you know, I'm looking at this year of COVID, and I had my own little granddaughter trying to do online school, and it was a disaster. And you might say how much of it was the form of the training and how much of it was having a good teacher. And I would say the form was a big part of the problem. Yes, you can't control who the public's going to elect, whether they elect a Donald Trump or a Joe Biden. You can't exactly control that, but you can create a system that inspires people to work together, that separates our bureaus from being run by someone who will only be there for 2 years, that allows us to collaborate. The system, if it's a good system, will enhance the right politicians, will attract the right leaders. A poor system may attract not the right leaders.
That's a good thought. Dan Bennie.
Oh, hi. So Melanie, I will support what you just said. A good structure and roles and responsibilities goes a long way into getting good results. My question to you is, Commissioner Maps sort of ran on this as part of his campaign. Is he helping others get out in front with it? Are you getting active support from him? What's going on there?
At the very beginning, we met with all of the city councilors. And I believe that we are now scheduled to meet with each of them again, but they are taking a relatively hands-off approach because this involves their jobs. And so to a degree, they want to keep us separate. We'll listen to them and their thoughts, but we're listening to a lot of people. And what you don't want to do is weigh the decision based on what a commissioner who's in a position right now feels would be best for that commissioner or his or her position. And so it's being kept, I think, appropriately separate right now, but we do know that Commissioner Mapps is a great supporter of governmental form change.
Okay, Robbie Wilson.
Quick question. What is the criteria, and you might have said this, and I'm sorry if you said it, what is the criteria for getting this new form of government passed? Is it like a voter thing, or does it go before a panel of judges, for lack of a better term? Is it, I guess what I'm asking is it going before professionals, or is it going before just everybody, and everybody has to like say yes or no?
Actually, I like the way you raised that, Robbie. The answer is, the simple answer is that it goes to the electorate and they get to say yes or no. Having said that, and I like that you raised judges, we're being very careful about our language so that it does not, it is not open to any kind of legal lawsuit that it is incorrect or that it defies the Constitution or whatever. So first, it will be looked at by the city attorney and others to make sure that the language is implementable. And then if 15 of the 20 charter commissioners approve it, it goes straight to the electorate.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha.
Yeah, thank you for coming, Melanie. My question, and I just haven't thought of it before, how does Portland's form of government compare to, say, Beaverton or Tigard or Oregon City, the surrounding areas? Are we really different than them? Are they the same as us? Have you guys looked at the way they run the other cities right around us?
This is still a work in progress, Aisha, and we're not even going to have our, we're still looking at like the people around us, and we're not going to have our answers to these things by until January, but that is one of the things that we're looking at. To the extent that we have looked at it, the answer is no, that they're not doing it the same way we are, but I can't say with everyone that is the case.
Okay, I'm going to take one more question and then we're going to have to, I think what we'll do, there are a lot of questions in the chat. We'll save those and then we will submit those to you and we will collect them and get back to our audience with those in written form after the meeting. But this last question comes from Wesley Mann. Can you unmute?
There we go. Thanks for taking my question, and it was very informative, Melanie. I posted a semi-humorous message in chat saying, "I'm 73. Will I die? Will I die before I see this form of government in Portland change?" And it's a very simple question. What is the? I think everybody who lives in Portland virtually wants to see the city, the form of city government change. It's just how long is it going to take? What's like the shortest timeline you think that we could accomplish this, and what is the most long-term negative view of when it will happen?
First of all, Wesley, I want to assure you that if you get your vaccination and wear your mask, you're not going to die before this happens. At this point, I do not know the answer to your question. I know that we're aiming to get it on the November ballot. It is not yet written because we don't know precisely. We have not determined yet what system we want to put in place. And only then can we realistically determine how long it would take to put said system into place. But my gut feeling is that we are looking at probably maximum of 3 years. So just hang on.
Okay, that's way more optimistic than I ever thought. So thank you. I'd like to leave an ad with you from Alan Clausen and myself to pick up the latest September issue of Northwest Examiner, which will hit the streets tomorrow.
Kevin has sent a question in that I see. I didn't see any of the other chats because I'm looking at you guys. But Kevin said, who is funding this? You are, Kev. All of you people in this meeting, you are funding it. So but the one thing that I will say is you are getting us on the cheap because the commissioners, myself being one of them, we aren't being paid. And when we signed up for this and they said it would be one meeting a month, that was a lie. I have actually just resigned from Portland State University because I could no longer balance everything that I had to do. So you're getting it on the cheap.
Thank you for your
Please, to Melanie at beyonddealmaking.com. Any checks you want to send me, you know, I'm pleased.
Hey,
nice.
Judy, may I slip in something in finale? And thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Vadim, for being on this call. I want to say I'm super proud of the 6 neighborhoods getting together to talk about charter reform. And if you guys like what you see, we can. I do have friends that are city managers in the respective cities around Portland that are chomping at the bit to meet with us, and we could do Q&A with other city managers to see what they do and how they react to their communities as well. If you see that as an interesting topic down the line for our 6 neighborhoods, put it in the comment section. Let's invite our future guests to join us.
Oh, and one more thing. Thanks, Tiff. One more thing is Neighbors West Northwest has invited me to speak. I think on the 23rd, I think. And so if you have your questions from the chat and you send them to me, I'll make sure to address those when I speak to Neighbors West Northwest. So it gets covered there.
That sounds good, Melanie. And thank you for your dedication to this effort. It's people like you and Vadim that are going to help us through the process. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good to see all of you. And now I will go deal with the little monsters outside my door.